You stand up out of bed this morning without thinking about it. 2 feet hit the floor, your spine straightens. Your hands stay free, swinging loose at your sides. It feels automatic, effortless, the most natural thing in the world. But the real reason your body moves this way is far stranger than simple balance. For most of the history of life on Earth, nothing walked the way you do right now. 4 legs were the default setting for survival. Stability, speed, weight spread across 4 points of contact with the ground. Then, somewhere in the forests and grasslands of Africa, a small ape-like creature stood up on 2 legs, and it never went back down. Why would it do that? For decades, the answer seemed obvious. Scientists assumed early humans stood up to see over tall grass, scanning for predators on an open savanna. It was a clean story: hot sun, tall grass, a creature rising up like a periscope. But the fossil evidence tells a much messier, far more interesting story than that. In 1974, paleoanthropologist Donald Johanson uncovered a skeleton in Ethiopia that changed everything scientists thought they knew. He named her Lucy. She stood barely over 3 feet tall and lived more than 3 million years ago. Her pelvis, her knee joint, her spine, every piece confirmed something startling. Lucy walked upright, fully and confidently, long before her brain had grown large, long before stone tools, long before anything resembling modern human intelligence. That timing changes the whole question. Walking upright did not happen after early humans got smart. It happened first. Bipedalism was not a result of being human. It was one of the causes. So if it was not about scanning for danger over grass, what was it about? Even earlier evidence pushes the story back further. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, researcher Tim White and his team uncovered the remains of Ardipithecus ramidus, a creature nicknamed Ardi, dating back more than 4 million years. Ardi still climbed trees with grasping feet, yet showed signs of walking upright on the ground as well. This suggests upright walking did not arrive in one dramatic leap. It crept in slowly, useful enough to keep, long before it became the only way these creatures moved. One of the most compelling explanations for why it stuck comes from anthropologist Owen Lovejoy. He proposed something called the provisioning model. Picture an early hominin mother caring for an infant who cannot cling to her fur the way other ape infants cling, because human infants are born more helpless and stay helpless longer. She cannot easily forage and carry a baby using all 4 limbs at once. Standing upright frees the hands. Hands that once braced against the ground can now carry food, carry an infant, carry tools back to a waiting partner. According to Lovejoy, walking upright may have emerged less from fear of predators and more from the practical demands of feeding a family that needed more care than any ape family before it. There is a second hypothesis, just as strange, built around something most people never think about: heat. Researcher Peter Wheeler studied how much of an animal's body faces direct sunlight depending on its posture. Walking on 4 legs under the African sun exposes far more surface area to that overhead light. Standing upright shrinks the exposed area dramatically, especially around midday. Less surface area in direct sun means less heat absorbed, which means less water lost through sweating, which means an early hominin could stay active during the hottest hours, while 4-legged predators rested in whatever shade they could find. Wheeler called this the thermoregulation hypothesis. Think about that for a moment. Your upright posture may exist at its core as a strategy for staying cool enough to keep moving when almost everything else had to stop. A third idea comes from primatologist Kevin Hunt, who studied chimpanzees in Tanzania. He noticed that chimps often stand briefly on 2 legs, not to look around, but to reach fruit growing on branches just out of arm's length. Hunt called this the postural feeding hypothesis, the idea that standing upright began as a feeding posture used in short bursts long before it became a primary way of moving across land at all. None of these explanations fully cancels out the others. Heat, carrying, feeding, caring for infants. The fossil record suggests bipedalism was not a single brilliant adaptation, but a slow accumulation of small advantages, each one reinforcing the next, until an entire body plan rebuilt itself around standing tall. And rebuilding came at a cost, a steep one. Your pelvis had to narrow to support an upright frame and keep your center of gravity stable with every stride. A narrower pelvis means a narrower birth canal. Human infants, unlike most other primates, are born with unusually large brains relative to body size. This created what anthropologists Karen Rosenberg and Wenda Trevathan describe as the obstetrical dilemma, two evolutionary pressures pulling in opposite directions at once. One pushing toward a narrower pelvis for efficient walking, one pushing toward enough room for a large-brained infant to be born safely at all. The compromise nearly broke the system. Human childbirth became more difficult and more dangerous than in almost any other species alive. Most primates give birth alone, quietly, without assistance. Human mothers, across nearly every culture ever studied, have relied on someone else's help during labor. Pause and consider what that single fact means. The simple act of walking on two legs reshaped how humans give birth, reshaped family structure, and pushed early communities toward cooperation just to survive the moment a new life entered the world. Your spine paid its own price. It curves into an S shape to balance your upper body directly over your hips, but that same curve leaves you uniquely vulnerable to back pain, slipped discs, and posture problems four-legged animals almost never experience. Your knees absorb force with every single step, force traveling straight down through one column of bone instead of spreading across four limbs. Your feet, once flexible and grasping like a chimpanzee's, flattened and stiffened into rigid platforms built for a single purpose, pushing you forward, mile after mile. So why would evolution accept such an expensive trade? Because the benefits outweighed the damage. Freed hands meant tool use. Tool use meant access to foods other animals could never reach. Marrow cracked from bone, roots dug from dry ground, materials carried over long distances to where they were actually needed. Upright posture meant endurance walking, and eventually endurance running. The ability to cover ground for hours in a way almost no other primate can match. Some researchers argue this endurance is precisely what let early humans scavenge and hunt across distances that left their four-legged competitors behind. There is something quieter buried in all of this, too. Standing upright changed how early hominins related to one another. Faces became visible at eye level during conversation. Gestures became possible with hands no longer needed for walking. Carrying became something done together for someone else's benefit, not just your own. The very posture that caused back pain and dangerous childbirth may have also built the foundation for shared parenting and cooperation. You inherited every piece of this. The S-curved spine, the narrowed hips, the locked, weight-bearing knees, the flat, forward-driving feet. Every twinge in your lower back after sitting too long at a desk is an echo of a trade made millions of years ago, long before anyone alive could have known what it would cost, or what it would eventually build. You don't think about any of this walking to the kitchen or standing in line at a store. Your hands swing free because a creature like Lucy needed her hands free to survive. You stay upright through the hottest part of the day without collapsing because Peter Wheeler's cooling hypothesis is quietly doing its work inside your own skin right now. And if you were ever born into this world, someone almost certainly had to help, because your skull was simply too large for a body built to carry it efficiently on two legs. You did not choose to walk this way. You inherited a decision made by ancestors who traded stability for freedom, 4 points of contact for 2 free hands, and an easier birth for a brain large enough to eventually ask why any of this happened at all. So the next time you stand up without giving it a second thought, remember this. The real reason your body moves this way was never simple And it was never about looking taller over tall grass. It was about staying cool under a brutal sun, freeing your hands for people who depended on you, and surviving the costly, complicated, deeply human compromise written into every single step you take.